My wealthy aunt left me everything, a luxurious house and $2 million. My parents, who had abandoned me 15 years ago, suddenly showed up at the will reading. "We're your guardians again," they said with a smile. But when my lawyer walked in, their faces turned pale. When I was 8 years old, I learned what abandonment really meant. It wasn't some dramatic goodbye, no tearful hugs, no explanations. One day, my parents just left. They packed their things, said they'd be back soon, and never returned. My Aunt Laura was the one who found me sitting on the porch that evening, clutching a half-empty cereal box. She didn't ask questions. She just picked me up, took me home, and said, "You'll stay with me now." She was wealthy, though she never flaunted it. Her house overlooked the coast, with glass walls that turned golden every sunset. To me, it wasn't the luxury, it was safety. A quiet place where no one shouted, no doors slammed, and nobody forgot my birthday. Growing up, I watched her manage her company with calm authority. Everyone respected her, and somehow, through her, I learned dignity. She never talked about my parents, but sometimes, when she thought I wasn't listening, she'd whisper things like, "Some people just don't deserve what they're given." By the time I turned 23, I'd built a life of my own. I was finishing my degree, working part-time at her firm, slowly becoming the person she always believed I could be. She called me the son I never had. Then, last winter, she fell ill. It wasn't sudden, but it was fast, like the world decided to move on without her. I was there for every appointment, every late-night phone call, every moment she needed someone to hold her hand. My parents never called. She passed away in spring. The funeral was small, her choice. Only a handful of close friends, a few employees, and me. I remember standing there, looking at her portrait framed with lilies, feeling this unbearable mix of grief and gratitude. A week later, I got a letter from her lawyer. Reading of the will, Tuesday, 10 a.m. I didn't expect much. Maybe her favorite books, or the piano she taught me on. But when I arrived at the law office, I froze. Sitting there, dressed in expensive clothes they definitely couldn't afford, were my parents. They smiled like nothing had ever happened, like 15 years hadn't passed. My father even waved. "Son, long time no see." And my mother, she said it so casually it made my stomach turn. "We're your guardians again." That's when the lawyer entered the room. And for the first time, their smiles started to fade. Little did I know, that was just the beginning of their downfall. The lawyer's office smelled of polished wood and expensive silence. A long table, 2 leather chairs on each side, sunlight sliding through half-closed blinds. My parents looked completely at ease, like they'd walked into a party, not the last page of someone's life. Mr. Harland, my aunt's lawyer, was a composed man in his 50s, glasses resting low on his nose. He greeted me first, then offered a faint nod to my parents. "Thank you for coming," he said. "This won't take long." I sat opposite them, my heartbeat steady but heavy. My father leaned back, crossing his legs, tapping his ring against the table, his old nervous habit. My mother kept glancing at me, that practiced look of concern that used to work when I was a child. Now it just made my skin crawl. Harland opened a thick folder, each page edged with those small colored tabs lawyers love. "Laura Henderson's final testament," he began, dated February 18th, last year. He read the usual introductions, charitable donations, the foundation she'd established for cancer research. My parents listened with the patience of hunters. I could almost hear their thoughts counting zeros. Then Harlan paused. "To my nephew," he continued, "I leave the residence at Ocean View Drive, my personal assets, and the remaining balance of my estate." My father blinked. "Excuse me, the what?" Harlan looked up. $2,043,000. The air went still. My mother's smile froze mid-expression, like her face forgot how to move. She stammered. Surely there must be some oversight. We were her family too. Harlan adjusted his glasses. "Mrs. Mason, you relinquished guardianship 15 years ago. Legally, you are no longer next of kin." I watched their color drain. My father leaned forward, his voice sharp. "That can be reevaluated. We're his parents. We can represent him." "Actually," Harlan said, sliding another document across the table, "you can't." Ms. Henderson anticipated possible interference. She named Mr. Mason here as independent beneficiary, with full legal autonomy. And, he tapped the page, a restraining order clause, effective immediately if either of you attempt contact for financial gain. My father's jaw clenched. She can't do that. She already did. I didn't say a word. I just looked at them. The people who'd once called me a burden, now sitting in front of me because I was finally worth something. My mother reached for me, soft voice trembling. Sweetheart, we did what we had to. We were young, scared. Save it, I said quietly. My hands were shaking, but my voice wasn't. You left a kid, not a bill. Harland cleared his throat. There's one final note. He unfolded a handwritten letter and began to read. To my dear nephew, people reveal their hearts when money enters the room. If those who left you return, remember, love doesn't need signatures. Protect yourself. Silence. Only the ticking clock. My father stood abruptly. This isn't over. He stormed out, my mother scrambling after him. I exhaled for the first time in what felt like hours. But as Harland closed the folder, he hesitated. There's another document you should see. She left it only for your eyes. And that's when I realized my aunt hadn't told me everything. Harland waited until my parents' voices faded down the hallway before speaking again. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a smaller, sealed envelope. Its paper was thick, cream-colored, and on the front, in my aunt's careful handwriting, it said only, for when you're truly ready. He slid it across the table. She instructed me to give you this privately. Her exact words were, he'll understand when he's calm. For a long moment, I just stared at it. The seal caught the light like a warning. What is it? I asked. Harland hesitated. I don't know. She gave it to me personally 6 months before she passed. Told me not to open it, no matter what happened. My heart pounded harder than it had during the entire reading. Did she say why? He shook his head. Only that it would explain certain choices. That phrasing stuck with me, certain choices. I tucked the envelope inside my jacket and thanked him. As I stepped out into the sunlight, everything felt surreal. The ocean breeze, the sound of traffic, even my own reflection in the glass door. For 15 years, I'd built a life on stability, on control, and in a single morning, the past had come back dressed in expensive perfume and false smiles. Back home, I placed the envelope on the piano, the one she used to play at night, soft melodies echoing through the house while I did homework at the kitchen table. That piano had always been her way of saying everything's okay. Now, the silence around it felt heavy. I didn't open it that day, or the next. Instead, I went through her study, organizing papers, trying to keep busy. But the more I looked, the more questions surfaced. Several folders were missing. Her personal safe was open, keys neatly arranged beside it, something she never did. And her financial records ended abruptly a month before her death. That's when I noticed the letter opener, still resting on the desk, but smeared faintly with something dark, almost rust-colored. For a second, I thought it was a trick of the light. It wasn't. I called Harland. Was there anyone else involved in her affairs? Another trustee. He hesitated on the line. There was someone she met with frequently before she got sick. A younger associate. Name's Michael Kerr. But he wasn't on any official documents. And you didn't find that strange? I did, he said quietly. But Ms. Henderson insisted everything was under control. I hung up, uneasy. Michael Kerr. The name meant nothing to me, yet. But something in my gut twisted the way it used to when I was a kid and heard my parents arguing behind closed doors. That same electric hum of something's not right. That night, I finally sat at the piano. I ran my fingers over the keys, then over the envelope resting on top of it. I broke the seal. Inside were 2 things, a handwritten note and a folded document with a notary stamp. The note began with 6 words that made my blood run cold. If you're reading this, they know. I didn't move. I just sat there, realizing that my parents might not have come for inheritance, but for something far more dangerous. The first line of her note didn't make sense. If you're reading this, they know. Who were they? My parents? The associate, Michael Kerr? My hands shook as I unfolded the rest. Her handwriting was steady, elegant, deliberate. Every word felt like a heartbeat. 15 years ago, your parents didn't leave because they were poor. They left because they took something that wasn't theirs, from me and from you. I kept it quiet to protect you, but some secrets rot in silence. I fear it's reaching you now. I stopped breathing. I looked around her study as if the walls might whisper an explanation. Took something? What could they possibly have taken? The second page was a legal transcript, a notarized statement dated a year before her death. The words hit harder than any slap. I, Laura Henderson, confirmed that a fraudulent transfer of trust assets was executed by Peter and Diane Mason in the amount of $480,000 15 years ago. Evidence enclosed. My parents had stolen from her. From me. I felt the world tilt. My knees almost gave out. The childhood memories, the sudden move, the nights without food, the way they told me money doesn't grow on trees. All of it rearranged into something darker, meaner. I tore through the envelope. Attached was a small USB drive, labeled Evidence. My fingers trembled as I plugged it into my laptop. The screen lit up, folders, photos, bank statements, scanned signatures. But one file stopped me cold, recording _27 MP3. I clicked play. My aunt's voice, calm as always. Peter, if you sign that form, you're stealing from your own son. My father's voice, sharp and defensive. He'll thank me one day. Kids don't need millions. Parents do. Then a woman's laugh, my mother. Relax. She'll never find out. And when the time comes, we'll come back for what's ours. The audio cut. I sat there in silence, heart pounding so violently it drowned out everything else. 15 years. 15 years of pretending they were victims, when all along they were thieves. My mind spiraled. If my aunt knew, why hadn't she pressed charges? Why leave it buried in a letter? And then I saw it. The last paragraph, barely legible where the ink had smudged. If something happens to me before I can amend my estate, give this to Mr. Harland. He'll know what to do. Trust no one else. Especially them. I reread that line until the words burned. Especially them. At that exact moment, headlights swept across the window. I froze. A car was parked outside the gate. Black, engine running. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. A message. We need to talk. Now. It was from my father. I looked back at the letter, at my aunt's signature, at the USB still glowing in the dark. She had tried to warn me. And it wasn't just about inheritance anymore. It was about survival. I didn't answer the message. I just watched the car idle by the gate until the headlights cut out. Then nothing. Only the slow hum of waves against the cliffs. It was past midnight, but I couldn't stay inside that house. Every wall seemed to whisper her voice. Every shadow looked like a memory. By morning, I was sitting back in Harlan's office, pale and sleepless, the USB drive clutched in my hand. He frowned when he saw me. You opened it. Yes, I said. And you knew, didn't you? He took a breath that sounded heavier than guilt. I suspected. She told me enough to prepare, not enough to interfere. She wanted you to decide when the truth should matter. I placed the letter on his desk. They stole from her. From me. And she still protected them. Harlan nodded slowly. Out of mercy, not weakness. She spent years trying to recover what was lost quietly. The money wasn't the point. It was about making sure you'd never be manipulated again. I stared at him. What do you mean, again? He hesitated, then opened a drawer and pulled out a slim red folder. She left this with me under posthumous disclosure. Said to show you only if the Masons reappeared. Inside were surveillance photos, recent ones. My parents, meeting with a man outside a bank. The same man I'd heard on the phone during the recording. Michael Kerr. Harlan tapped the images. Kerr wasn't just an associate. He was your father's accountant during the original fraud. Your aunt tracked him for years. A month before she died, she told me he'd resurfaced, trying to reopen the old accounts. She suspected they were planning a second transfer using her declining health as leverage. I felt sick. So she knew they'd come back? She counted on it. He reached for another document, a fresh notarized will, dated only weeks before her death. This is the version she never filed officially. It grants you full control of her companies, but more importantly, it triggers a clause. If any party attempts to contest or claim guardianship, all assets freeze pending criminal investigation. A trap. Elegant, brutal, and completely legal. She set them up, I whispered. Harlan gave the smallest nod. She wanted justice, but through you. She believed you'd have the courage to finish what she couldn't. For a moment, I couldn't speak. All those nights she'd smiled and said patience is power, I finally understood. Then Harlan's phone buzzed. He checked the screen, his expression tightening. It's the courthouse. Your parents just filed a petition to dispute the estate. They're claiming undue influence. So it started. Yes, he said quietly. And once you respond, it becomes public record. You sure you're ready for that? I looked at the photos again. Their faces, confident, greedy, unrepentant. For 15 years, they wrote me out of their story, I said. Time to write myself back in. Harlan slid a signature page toward me. Then we moved forward. I took the pen, my hand steady this time. But as I pressed it to the paper, my phone vibrated again. A voicemail. My mother's voice. Hoarse, frightened. Don't trust him. The lawyer. He's not who you think. I froze, staring at Harlan across the desk. He was watching me too. Too still, too calm. And in that second, I realized my aunt's game wasn't finished. She hadn't told me who the real enemy was. I didn't play the voicemail twice. Once was enough to split my world in half. Harlan sat across from me, posture immaculate, expression unreadable. The kind of man who measured silence like money. My phone screen still glowed between us. Don't trust him. He must have noticed the way I looked at him. Everything all right? Fine, I lied. Just processing. He smiled. Polite, professional. But for the first time I saw how practiced that smile really was. I left his office without another word. Outside, the air tasted like metal. My aunt's words echoed in my head. Protect yourself. But from whom? Back at the house, I locked the doors and opened the letter again, studying every detail. Her handwriting trembled slightly near the end, as if she'd been weak when she wrote it, or scared. If Harlan had been helping her, why would she warn me about him? If she didn't trust him, why make him executor? Nothing fit. I printed the files from the USB and spread them across the dining table. Bank statements, photos, transcripts. The evidence was airtight, yet something about the signatures looked too consistent, too clean, like someone had recreated authenticity instead of capturing it. I zoomed in on one scanned page, a transaction authorization. Witness, Edward Harlan. My stomach dropped. He hadn't just been her lawyer, he'd been present during the original fraud. The same document my aunt later claimed was falsified bore his signature as witness. Had he been covering for her? Or for them? I spent the night tracing every thread I could. Email backups, old legal correspondence, archived tax filings. Around 2 a.m., I found it. A message chain between Harlan and my aunt, ending abruptly 2 weeks before her death. From Laura Henderson. Subject: Kerr's proposal. If they move forward without your signature, the trust defaults to me again. Please confirm alignment. Reply: Harlandy. Let's discuss in person. It's safer that way. There was no record of a follow-up. My mind churned. Either he'd tried to protect her and failed, or he'd made sure that in-person meetings silenced her for good. By dawn, I'd made my decision. If I was going to survive this, I needed information Harlan couldn't filter. I called an old university friend, Claire, now working at a financial crimes unit. We hadn't spoken in years, but when I mentioned the trust name and the sum involved, her tone shifted from sleepy to razor-sharp. Send me everything, she said. And Dima, be careful. That lawyer? He's on an internal watch list for offshore transfers. So my mother's warning wasn't paranoia. It was confirmation. I emailed her the files, deleted every copy from the laptop, and hid the USB inside the piano, right beneath the cracked F key where my aunt used to play. Then I dialed Harlan's number. He answered instantly. Change of heart already? Actually, I said, keeping my voice steady, I'd like to meet again. Tonight. At the house. Of course, he replied. We'll settle everything. His tone was calm, too calm. I ended the call and stared at the empty hallway. This was it. The moment between knowing and acting. Between trusting and burning the bridge. And as the clock hit midnight, headlights appeared again outside the gate. This time, I knew exactly who I'd invited. The house looked different at night. The ocean behind it was black glass, the moonlight cutting across the marble floor like a blade. I'd opened just one lamp in the living room, the kind of light that makes people uneasy, not dark enough to hide, not bright enough to feel safe. At 11:07, headlights rolled up the drive. Harlan stepped out, briefcase in hand, coat immaculate, every gesture controlled. He walked in without waiting for an invitation. Quite the dramatic setting, he said, glancing around. You always this theatrical? Depends on the company, I answered. He smiled, that same lawyer's half-smile. Then let's make it short. He sat at the table, placing his briefcase down gently, like he was handling evidence in court. I reviewed the situation, he said. Your parents' claim won't hold. They're desperate. The smart move is to file a counterclaim now. We freeze their assets, they'll back off. He slid a folder toward me. Inside were legal drafts, perfectly formatted, notarized, even pre-signed by him. Almost too ready. You did this fast, I said. I anticipated the outcome, he replied. Laura and I discussed scenarios like this for years. Her name out of his mouth made my stomach tighten. You were her witness during the original fraud. He didn't flinch. That's correct. So you knew? I suspected, he said smoothly. But I also knew she'd never forgive me if I intervened. Laura had her methods. Like dying suddenly before she could amend her will. I asked. For the first time, his smile slipped. I was in London that week. That's not what the flight records say. Silence stretched between us. Only the faint ticking of the antique clock on the mantel. He finally sighed. Look, I understand your suspicion. But right now, you need me. The evidence you hold is powerful, but dangerous. If it leaks, it implicates the firm. And trust me, they won't go down alone. He leaned forward. Sign the counterclaim. I'll protect you. And we can make this all disappear. There it was, the offer. The mask slipping just enough to show the outline of threat beneath. I let a long pause fill the room before I spoke. I'm not signing anything tonight. He studied me, then smiled again, colder this time. As you wish. But think carefully, Mason. The wrong move can turn heirs into suspects. He stood, buttoned his coat, and started for the door. When his hand touched the handle, I said quietly, "Oh, one more thing." He turned. "The files you wanted to protect? They're already with someone else." His eyes flickered, the smallest crack in the mask. "I see," he said finally. "Then I hope your friend is more discreet than you are." He left. No threats, no outburst, just the sound of tires rolling away into the night. For the first time, I exhaled. It felt done, like I'd taken back control. But an hour later, my phone lit up again. Claire, my contact from the Financial Crimes Unit. Her message was short. The USB's clean. Too clean. Metadata wiped. Someone edited these files recently, and the last device registered was your aunt's, 3 days after her death. I stared at the screen, pulse pounding. If the data had been tampered with after she died, then someone else was still moving the pieces. And Harland wasn't the only one playing this game. By morning, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Unknown numbers. Private callers. Voicemails with no sound, just static. Claire's last message still burned on the screen, 3 days after her death. I replayed it in my mind while pacing the living room, the piano untouched beside me. That piano had always meant order. Now it was just another relic of a lie. At 9 a.m., a black sedan parked across the street. No plates. 2 men inside. Not moving. Then came the knock. 3 sharp hits. Precise. Official. I opened the door to find 2 police officers, badges out. "Mr. Mason?" "Yes." "You're being served. Fraud investigation under Section 14C, falsified inheritance claim." I froze. "That's impossible." One officer handed me a folder. Inside, photocopies of my aunt's will, but not the one Harland had read. This version named no beneficiary at all. "This is a mistake," I said. "Then you'll want to speak to your attorney," the taller officer said. Mr. Harland's already provided his statement. The words hit like a bullet. Harland's statement. By the time the door shut, my pulse was a hammer in my throat. I ripped open the folder again. Every page stamped, notarized, perfect. Too perfect. He'd rewritten the story. And legally, it would hold. I called Claire, voice shaking. They flipped it. Harland doctored everything. She cursed softly. He moved fast. We traced his firm's servers. He's deleting records in real time. What do I do? Get out of the house. Now. You're about to be framed for digital tampering. I grabbed my jacket and the letter, her letter, the only thing still real. But as I reached the door, I saw movement through the window, my parents, standing by the gate, waiting. My father was on the phone, gesturing toward the house. My mother just watched the door, expression unreadable. I stepped outside slowly. "So now what?" I said. "You try to finish what you started 15 years ago." My mother's voice was quiet. "You don't understand. We thought she'd forgive us. Harland promised." "Promised what?" "That he'd make it right. That we'd all get a share." But then she changed the papers. "He said he'd fix it." Her words blurred into white noise. The betrayal was total, layered, generational, complete. Harland hadn't been protecting the estate. He'd been protecting himself. A second car pulled up, same model as the one outside last night. Claire's voice screamed through the phone. "Dima, they're tracing the drive. Don't." The line went dead. I looked down. My phone screen flickered, then went black. Static burst from the piano speakers behind me. For a split second, I heard my aunt's voice. A recorded message, faint and distorted. If you're hearing this, he's found you. Trust no paper. Trust no law. Only proof. The recording cut off. When I turned back, the two men from the car were already halfway up the driveway. My parents backed away. My father shouted something I couldn't hear. I ran inside, tore open the piano lid, grabbed the USB, and froze. It wasn't there. Just an empty slot where the drive had been. And on the keys, written in smudged black marker, "You're next." I don't remember running. Only the sound of gravel under my shoes, the ocean wind tearing through the trees, and that single thought looping in my head. It's gone. The USB. The only proof left, erased, stolen, or both. By the time I reached the cliffs, my lungs were burning. From there I could see everything. The empty house, the two dark cars, the faint red glow of taillights retreating toward the main road. I felt hollow. 15 years of pain, 15 years of silence. And now I was the villain in someone else's story. I sat on the ground, trying to breathe, but the world kept spinning. My phone was dead, my name already poisoned. My parents vanished into whatever deal Harland had promised them. For the first time, I understood why my aunt had warned me not to trust anyone. Because she hadn't trusted anyone either. The horizon blurred. And then I saw it. A flash of movement near the house. Someone inside. A shadow against the curtain. They were still there. Something in me snapped. The fear burned away, leaving only that cold, clean focus I hadn't felt since the day they left me. I wasn't a child anymore. And I wasn't running. I walked back. Slowly, quietly. Through the gate. Across the gravel. Up the steps. The front door was open just a crack. Inside, the lights were on. The piano lid stood open again. And sitting on the bench was a small envelope I hadn't seen before. The same cream-colored paper as my aunt's letter. No name. No address. Just a single phrase. Last move. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a memory card and a note written in that same looping hand. They think they erased the truth. They didn't. I made copies. One in the safe you found. One with him. One hidden where the music ends. Where the music ends. I turned toward the piano. The cracked F key. The place she always stopped mid-song, saying it sounded unfinished. I reached underneath, felt along the wooden frame, and there it was. A tiny metallic bump. I pried it loose, a hidden flash drive, taped beneath the key. For a moment I couldn't move. The weight of everything, her foresight, her silence, her faith, crashed over me like a tide. I plugged it into the laptop. A single file appeared, truth_final.mov. It was a video. My aunt, sitting in her study, thinner than I remembered but eyes sharp as ever. If you're watching this, it means Harland and your parents have made their move. I gave them every chance to tell the truth. They didn't. You, however, have what they fear most, the story. Take it public. Let them bury themselves under their own lies. Her voice broke slightly near the end. Remember, love doesn't need signatures. Justice does. The screen went black. I didn't cry. I couldn't. All I felt was the slow return of gravity, the sense that everything she'd built now rested in my hands. Outside, the cars were gone. The house was silent. And for the first time, silence didn't scare me. I opened the curtains and looked out toward the horizon. The first light of dawn touched the ocean like a promise. Then my phone lit up again. A single message from an unknown number. Upload it, and you'll join her. I stared at the message. Upload it, and you'll join her. It was almost poetic, in a sick way. A promise wrapped as a threat. But this time, I didn't hesitate. My aunt hadn't hidden the truth, so I could die protecting it. She'd hidden it, so I could use it. I packed the laptop, the flash drive, and the original letter, then drove straight to the only place I knew would make the truth permanent. The courthouse media office. Not the police. Not Harland. Public. Irreversible. By the time I arrived, reporters were already camped outside. The estate dispute had leaked. Perfect. I walked straight to the steps, opened my laptop, connected to public Wi-Fi, and hit upload. The file began to process. Truth_final.mov public archive server. Percentage ticking up. For percent, 18%, 41%. My phone rang. Harland. Don't do this, he said. His tone was calm, almost parental. You'll destroy more than just reputations. You'll lose everything she left you. She didn't leave me silence, I said. She left me proof. Do you even know what's on that drive? He snapped. Yes, I said. And so will everyone else. He exhaled slowly. You think justice lives online? It doesn't. It lives in contracts, loopholes, men like me. And we always win. Not today. I hung up. The upload hit 87% when two security officers approached. Sir, you need to come with us. Behind them, Harland appeared, immaculate as ever, carrying a folder and a smile meant to end wars. Mr. Mason, he said, I have a court order preventing dissemination of privileged material. He waved the document like a victory flag. The guards hesitated. I looked at the judge's seal, real, stamped, official. Then at my screen, 93%. I smiled. You're late. The upload beeped. Completed. File archived and mirrored. A notification flashed, shared to 12 public outlets. The color drained from Harlan's face. Right then, Claire's voice echoed through the speakers of a nearby reporter's mic feed. This is a statement from the Financial Crimes Division. Evidence has confirmed falsified documents involving attorney Edward Harland and the late Laura Henderson estate. Proceedings begin immediately. Harlan staggered back. You idiot, he hissed. You don't understand how far this goes. Far enough, I said. She knew. He tried to move toward me, but the officers blocked his path. One of them took the folder from his hand. Another pulled him aside as cameras erupted like fireworks. I stood there, breathless, half relieved, half terrified. For a moment, everything froze. The sound, the lights, the chaos. And I imagined her watching from somewhere. That small satisfied smile she always wore when the plan worked. Then the first headlines started scrolling across phones. Estate lawyer implicated in $2 million fraud scheme. Missing assets traced to offshore accounts linked to Harland and Kerr. Beneficiary vindicated. The crowd swelled around me. Reporters shouting questions, microphones in my face. I didn't answer any of them. I just whispered, "Thank you, Laura." Because in that moment, she was still orchestrating it all. As I walked away, my phone buzzed one last time. Unknown number again. You won't be able to hide forever. I looked back at the courthouse, the flashing cameras, the chaos she'd predicted, and finally smiled. I'm not hiding anymore.